What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name's CJ, and in today's video, we're going to be looking at some more NBA player props over on PrizePicks. So we're talking points, assists, rebounds, and three-point props. If you're into that sort of thing, definitely stick around. Yesterday's video, I think we ended up having about 4 out of 8, so about half of the picks ended up hitting from yesterday's video. We're going to look to improve on that percentage. Going over 50% is always my goal in these videos. Now, today I'm going to do things a little bit differently. Instead of doing 8 picks, I'm going to do 5 picks. And the reason for that is I've had some feedback from a couple of people who say, which player should I put in my lineups? Which ones do you like the most? Which entry, should I do? 2 pick, 5 pick? So by narrowing it down to 5 picks, then you could go any way you want, really. You could go with a 5-pick flex play. You can make it a 4, a 3, or a 2-pick. So I know there's a lot of different people out there who like to play a lot of different ways over on PrizePicks. So maybe by narrowing it down to just 5 picks, you can pick, your favorite out of the 5, pick all 5, pick none of the 5. But that'll give you some different options, some different ways to go. So we're going to give that a try. Now, yesterday's video, we went over 40 likes. Let's try and get over 40 likes again. I'm going to go with 39.5 is the line for today's like goal. Let's see if we can smash the over going for 40 or more likes once again. Another thing I want to mention is that Patreon is an extension of what I do here on YouTube. So if you like my YouTube content, the research, the analysis that I put into all of these different prop picks, well, I do a lot more for the members of Patreon. So if you're interested in joining, I'll leave a link down in the description below. It's just $20 a month. It helps support me as a content creator, allowing me to make more of these videos for you and go above and beyond for you patrons out there and making those spreadsheets, putting all those player props into one accessible spreadsheet, and hopefully saving you a bunch of time and delivering some value along the way. So with that out of the way, if you're not a PrizePicks player yet, now's a great time to do that. At the bottom of this video, you'll see a little banner here. 100% instant deposit match for first-time depositors is going on right now. All you have to do is use promo code Curry or use the link down in the description of this video. So if you put in $100, they're going to match it with another $100, giving you $200, which should be plenty of money to carry you throughout the rest of this NBA playoff run. And hopefully you can multiply those dollars as well. So definitely think about joining PrizePicks today and Patreon. If you haven't yet, I'll also leave a link down to our free Discord community if you're interested in joining that. Cost you nothing. You can go in there, chop it up, find some picks, talk strategies, whatever you want to do with other like-minded individuals. So let's start getting into some of these player props. Let's take a look at this 4-game NBA slate here. We've got the Washington Wizards at the Philadelphia 76ers. Of course, the big news of the day, Joel Embiid has suffered a torn meniscus in his knee and will not be playing. Now, I don't know if this is the sort of thing that the training staff over in Philadelphia is going to try and manage and see if he could play through it. Torn meniscuses, I mean, depending on the severity of it, I'm no doctor, but I have torn my own meniscus. I mean, they could be very painful. They could be, a cause of a lot of swelling in the knee joint. So I don't know what the status of Joel Embiid is. Sounds like it's going to be a game-to-game type of thing, and they're going to just play it by ear. But anyway, he's out. So we've got a 229-point implied total with Philadelphia as 6-point home favorites. Even without Joel Embiid in the lineup, they are still favored by 6 points. But I've got a sneaky suspicion that this game's going to end up being a close one. I don't think this one's going to blow out despite that spread being at 6 points. Now let's move it over to the next game. We've got the Atlanta Hawks visiting the New York Knicks, 208.5 implied point total with New York as a 1-point favorite at home. This is the lowest scoring game of all 4 of today's games. New York, though, just a 1-point favorite, meaning the spread's going to be one that is close, competitive, should not be a blowout. But be careful taking a lot of overs, especially on those guys who aren't big stars. I just don't see that there's going to be a lot of fantasy goodness here to spread around. So maybe target the stars on some overs, but I don't know that I would target any of the scrubs, so to speak. Next game we have is the Memphis Grizzlies at the Utah Jazz. This one has a 226 implied total, but the spread is 9.5, meaning that this one has definite blowout risk here. There's potential that this one could get away from the Memphis Grizzlies as Utah looks to put the nail in the coffin for this Memphis team. So be very careful in this one with the blowouts. You know how blowouts do us. I mean, they've been the thorn in our side throughout this playoff run. So that could be another situation to possibly go light on this game here. In this last game, we've got the Dallas Mavericks at the Los Angeles Clippers. This one has a 217.5 implied point total, with the Clippers as 7.5 home favorites here. So 7.5 point home favorites. That's a pretty big margin there. This one is one that I'm a little bit worried about in terms of blowouts here. Looks like the Clippers have finally kicked things in gear and they're making this a competitive series. We had some doubts. We had some worries about this Clippers squad when Dallas came out to a roaring start in this series, but now things have started to shift a little bit back into the favor of the Los Angeles Clippers. So definitely going to be one of those games that I'll be interested in watching, but a little bit worried about a blowout in this one. So with the game breakdowns out of the way, let's start talking about some of these player props. As I mentioned, we're going to go for 5 picks today instead of 8. See if we can really hone in on some solid picks. First guy I want to talk about is going to be Daniel Gafford of the Washington Wizards. His point prop is at 12.5 right now. Now, 12.5, that's a little bit concerning. He's been pretty good at covering 11.5, which I think that's where his point prop was earlier in the day, was 11.5. He might have been increased to 12.5, which takes a little bit of the value out of playing Daniel Gafford here. So this one's going to be a little bit tough, we'll say, to figure out. I'll be honest with you, whenever I hit record on the video, I had every intention of him being at 11.5 points, but now that we're in the muck at 12.5 points, let's just go see if he can get it done here. So let's do a first preliminary research here. We'll type in Gafford, and you can see that he's projected for 11.1 points today, which indicates that he could be a favorite to go under his point prop of 12.5. So let's go over to NBA.com. We'll type in Gafford's name. Hopefully NBA.com wants to, play nice today. They haven't been playing along with me here lately. His season averages for points per game is 7 points per game, which obviously puts him well under 12.5. But let's go look and see how well he's been doing in this playoff series, because that's going to be the more relevant sample size. So we'll change the season type from regular season to playoffs, and you can see that in 4 games, he's averaging about 22 minutes per game. His scoring average during that time is 12.8 points per game. Not attempting a ton of shots here, just 5.5 field goal attempts per game, but his field goal percentage is very good, 86%. So that's something to definitely consider. He gets to the line about 5 times per game so far in this series. He makes about 3 to 4 of those, so good for about 65%. So that's where all his points are coming from. Again, when I hit record on this video, he was at 11.5 points. Obviously, PrizePicks has bumped him up to 12.5. Kind of caught me off guard here, so we're winging it. But so far, he is covering this 12.5 point spread over the course of this playoff series. So projected for less than 12.5, but the averages indicate that he can definitely cover 12.5. So let's go ahead and move over to RotoWire. We'll take a look at the various sports books out there and see how they've got Gafford in terms of his points prop. So at 11.5 points, he is an even, let's say, minus 113 under and over here. So not really seeing any action, any juice that will help us make a decision on the over or under here. He is a minus 110 under, minus 110 over on FanDuel. And then last but not least, BetMGM at a minus 128 to go over 10.5 points, which I think is a very safe bet. But he's at 12.5 on PrizePicks, so you're not really seeing any action here on any of these books that really helps us determine whether he can go over 12.5 points. This is just one of those crazy situations where you go into, creating a video, and unfortunately, they've already moved Gafford up to 12.5. So for me, I'm going to probably just recommend that you fade this pick, but if you were to lean one way or the other, I would guess that probably the over is the way to go. But for me, it's going to be a fade on Daniel Gafford. There must have been too much action on the over at 11.5 points, and they went ahead and gave him the old bumperoo up to 12.5. So we're going to move on to the next prop, which is a rebound prop. We're talking about Gafford's teammate here, Russell Westbrook, who's at 12.5 boards. Now, obviously, I don't need to tell you, this is the triple-double king, right? This guy can crush the rebounds on any given night. In fact, he's already got one game in this series, I believe it was the last game, where he went over 20 rebounds. Now, I don't expect him to do that night in and night out. So at 12.5 boards, I think I'm looking to take the under here on Russell Westbrook today. But let's go back over to Number Fire. We'll type in Westbrook's name. And we'll go to the rebound column here, and he's at 11.7 boards, which indicates that even if we rounded it up to 12 rebounds, he would still be under 12.5 boards. So let's move things over to NBA.com. We could take a look at Westbrook, see how well he's just been rebounding the ball, both for the season and for his averages in this playoff series. You can see he's at 11.5 rebounds per game for the season. So that indicates that the under is still definitely in play, still definitely a look here. And then finally, we'll go over to the season type, change it from regular season to playoffs. You can see that in 4 games so far in this series, he's playing over 37 minutes per game, and his rebound average is at 11. So he is less than 12.5 boards per game in this series so far, which is a great sign for the under if that's the way that we want to go. So last but not least, we're going to click the rebound category over on RotoWire. Let's go ahead and type in Westbrook's name there. And you can see that he's at 12.5 boards across the industry today. And we're seeing some pretty favorable odds here. We got him as a -118 under, a -128 under, and last but not least, the strongest odds out of all 3 of these books here, a -139 to go under 12.5 boards. So everything for me is adding up on an under on Russell Westbrook. This is the type of situation too that I like to target, where he's coming off of a game of like 20 or more rebounds, and the chances that he does that again are pretty low. So I think he reverts back to closer to where his averages are, both for the season and in this series. So I don't mind taking the under on this 12.5 rebound prop for Russell Westbrook. So with him out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the next prop, which is going to be Mr. John Collins, who's at 6.5 boards. And at 6.5 boards, that just seems entirely too low. Now, I was looking at the game logs for John Collins before I hit record on today's video, and he did have that one game where he just didn't play a whole lot of minutes, but the other games he was around 6 or 7 rebounds. So I do think that there is some value here with John Collins and taking the over on this rebound prop, but who cares what I think? Let's get into some of the stats and some of the projections here and see where Collins is projected today. So at 7.7 projected rebounds, that would put him well over the 6.5 rebound prop over on PrizePicks today. So we just need him to pull down 7 or more boards. So I mentioned earlier that this game is going to be kind of low scoring. Now, it could be low scoring because it's going to be maybe a slower tempo game, or maybe guys are projected to miss more shots than they typically do. Whatever the case may be, 7.7 rebounds is the projection, and hopefully that the situation where they're missing more shots is going to be beneficial to John Collins, and he has more rebound opportunities in this one. So we're going back to NBA.com, typing in Collins' name. You can see that for the season, according to his player card here, he's at 7.4 rebounds per game, which clears 6.5 boards pretty easily, right? So let's click stats and we'll go look at how well he's been rebounding in this playoff series thus far. He's been playing a little over 27 minutes per game in the 4 games in which he's appeared in this series. Now, his rebound numbers are down to 5.8, but like I mentioned, he's got one game out of the 4 games that he's played in where I think he just pulled down like 2 rebounds. Now that's really going to deflate his overall rebound average. So I would kind of take that game, crumble it up, throw it away, and look at the other 3 games in his 4-game game log where he's been to like 6 or 7 rebounds in those. All right, so let's head back over to RotoWire. We will type in Mr. John Collins' name, search for him. You can see that he's at 6.5 boards across the industry today. First book has him as an even -113 under, -113 over. But we got 2 other books here to look at. -120 on the over, decent, not very super strong odds, but an even better position or stronger position being taken out here at -128. So with all things considered, he had that one bad game in this series so far where he just played, 20 minutes or less or something like that. He wasn't out on the floor a whole lot, but I do like him to bounce back in this spot here, and I don't mind taking the over on John Collins based on everything that I'm seeing today. So let's go ahead and move over to the next statistical category I want to explore, which is 3-point makes. Now, there's a couple of guys that really caught my attention. One guy is one that I'm looking to target, and that's Mike Conley Jr., who had a little bit of a down game overall in terms of scoring last game. He has been shooting it very well from beyond the arc, though, covering this 2.5 3-point prop with a pretty high consistency. So let's go ahead and dig into Mike Conley Jr.'s stats and see just how well he has been shooting, both in his season averages for the playoff series here against this Memphis Grizzlies team, and then we'll dig into the Vegas props and see what they think. So we're back to NBA.com. We type in Mike Conley's name here. We'll pull up his player card, dig in a little bit. Let's look at the regular season numbers first, if it'll load, because it's doing the thing that it likes to do. All right, well, that's why I have Basketball Reference up, so we can pivot, because this doesn't look like it's going to load. All right, for the regular season, you can see that Mike Conley attempts 6.6 three-pointers per game, and he makes 2.7, putting him over 2.5 ever so slightly. Now, that's good for a 41% three-point field goal percentage. So more often than not, he's closer to 3 three-point makes than he is 2. Now, we click this little playoff tab here and flip over, and you can see that in this playoff run so far, he's attempting 7.5 three-pointers per game. So that's definitely up from where his season averages are. And he's making 4 threes per game. Now, it's a little skewed because he did have one game where I think he made 7 three-pointers. Do I expect 7 tonight? No, but I do expect him to be able to cover and clear this 2.5 3-point prop based on how well he's been shooting in this series, which is 53%. So definitely been playing very good basketball, has Mike Conley Jr. So we're going to click the 3-point category over on RotoWire. Let's type in Conley's name. And we've got him at 2.5 3-pointers made in 3 different books here. Now, this first book, he is an even -113 on the under, -113 on the over. Obviously, we're not really getting any help there. No nod either to the under or the over. Same situation over here. He's a -115 under, -115 over, completely even Steven there. And finally, we get a little bit of help here as a -118 to go over and a -108 to go under. So slight favorite to go over according to the FD Sportsbook over there. So with all things considered, he has been shooting the ball well in this series. Struggled to score in the last game. Is more of a Donovan Mitchell game, but I do expect him to come back in this one and return closer to those averages. So I expect 3 or more 3-pointers to fall for Mike Conley Jr. He's just been shooting it too well for me to avoid this pick. So let's move on to another guy who's coming off of a bad game, who I look to in a bounce back situation. I'm talking Tim Hardaway Jr., who's at 2.5 3-pointers. Now, 2.5 3-pointers is a number that he has been able to cover pretty regularly here lately. Last game, he definitely struggled from beyond the arc, but you know, this is a next game league, a next game mentality we have to have here. So we're going to go back to Basketball Reference. Let's type in Tim Hardaway Jr.'s name. NBA.com has just become kind of unreliable when it comes to shooting these videos. So we'll go to game logs here and we'll click the 2021 season. And we'll go all the way down to the bottom here and we'll just look at the breakdown of his 3-point makes over the course of this series so far. So he started things off in game 1 with 5 3-point makes out of 9 attempts, good for 55%. Then he shoots 6, makes 6 out of 8 for 75%. Then he makes 4 out of 6 for 66%. And then he comes crashing back down to earth with a terrible performance. 0 for 4. So his attempts were down, as were his minutes. Hopefully he's back up to that 30 to 32 or more minute mark. You can see 32 minutes played, 38 minutes played, 40 minutes played, and then he had just 25 minutes played in that 4th game. So I expect his minutes to return back to that 30 or more minute mark. And then I expect his field goal attempts, which were just at 8, and his 3-point attempts, which were just at 4, to also return back to where they were earlier in this series. So this is definitely a spot where you can target a guy who kind of had a bad game and could be in a position to potentially bounce back. Now, it's been, irking me here. As I went through this video, I said that I would only do 5 picks, but being that Daniel Gafford pick kind of got snuck in there and they bumped it up to 12.5, I'm going to dig in here and see if I could find one more play. I said I would give you 5 picks. I plan on delivering on those 5 picks. So let's go ahead and talk one more pick here. And I'm going to look at Reggie Bullock at 2.5 3-point makes. This was the one that stood out to me as a potential under here. I saw some pretty strong odds of him going under. So let's go ahead and do the research together here on Reggie Bullock. So I'll go back to Basketball Reference here. We'll type in Bullock's name. Let's open up his player page. And you can see that for the season, his 3-point attempts were at 6.1 per game. He made 2.5, which is exactly where he is projected tonight over on PrizePicks. He's good for 41%. So we're going to switch this over to his playoff view here, and you can see that he is attempting just 5.3 attempts per game from beyond the arc, making just 1.5. So his 3-point attempts and his 3-point makes are actually down. He's shooting an abysmal 28% from beyond the arc. Let's go a little step further here and let's take a look at how well, or his game logs rather, and see how well he's been shooting from a game-to-game perspective. So we scroll all the way down here, we'll go down to the 2021 playoff category, and you can see that in the first game, he went 0 for 5. Then the next game, he bounces back with a good game here, 4 for 7. And then the next one, 2 for 6. And then finally, 0 for 3. So maybe he bounces back. You know, I don't expect him to shoot another 0-fer, although I guess he could. But being that this game is low scoring here, I am more privy to take the under on props like this. So as long as he stays under 3 3-point makes, we are in good shape here. And he's only went over this 2.5 3-point prop once so far in this series. So if you throw that one away, he's got a 0, a 0, and a 2. So I'm definitely riding on the under on this Reggie Bullock 2.5 3-point prop. So, and last but not least, we're going to head back over to RotoWire real quick. I've already got Bullock's name in there, and you can see that he's at 2.5 3-point makes on 2 different books here. We've got him as a -128 to go under. Pretty decent, but I think we could do better. And over here, we've got him as a big -159 under. Those are massive odds. I typically do not ignore any odds like that. So all in all, I think this Reggie Bullock play is looking very good based on the Vegas odds, based on how well or how poor he shot so far in this series. And I'm definitely going to take the under here. What do you guys think of today's video? Are there any props that I talked about that are absolutely standing out to you as a lock? Is there any that I didn't mention that maybe you're super interested in? Leave it down in the comment section below. You might help somebody out. Heck, you might even help me out. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. My name's CJ. Definitely make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on, as all the picks in this video are subject to change after the first hour after this video is released. If you're playing on PrizePicks tonight, good luck. If you're not, sign up below today. Promo code Curry. We'll catch you in the next one. Good luck tonight. Peace.